everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Sorry if I sound nasally, I've been getting over a cold. But anyway, today I have a little Valentine's themed speed paint for you all. This is a little mermaid I've had on hold to finish for such a long time now, and I'm really happy with the end product. But before I jump into the process behind this piece, I want to make sure to let you guys know that she will be available on my Redbubble shop, and all those links are down below. So as I mentioned, the concept for this piece has been in the works for a while because I also created a very similar sized mermaid last year, and when I was sketching out ideas for that, this was actually my initial sort of concept for that piece, but I ended up going with something else. So I had a very rough sketch of her pose in the background, so jumping into this final piece was pretty easy. The more difficult parts came later on. These seahorse mermaids are a personal favorite of mine ever since I first made one during last year's Mermay, and a lot of you really liked it on my Instagram, so I decided to keep sort of going with it and doing, some every now and again. But the specific seahorse I was taking inspiration from for this mermaid was the weedy sea dragon, or weedy seahorse, which they have a really interesting pattern and texture about them, which is something I really tried to get into her design for this piece. Once I had my sketch transferred to my watercolor paper, I jumped into putting some basic watercolor washes on. I knew I wanted her to be very pink, and I didn't want the background to be competing with her too much. I had these seaweed plants back there, so making them green was an easy choice and would complement all the pink on her. I then put a very pale skin color on her, and to be completely honest, I have no pre-made skin color watercolors. I work with a pretty limited palette right now, so I usually have to spend some time mixing my own skin tones, which has its pros and its cons. I continue to rework the background though by adding some differences to the sea plants, making some more grass green to olive green. Then came the hard part for me, her tail. This was just very difficult to sort of figure out. While I wanted her to be all pink, it just felt so flat to me, I wasn't getting the dimension or the texture that I wanted. So I ended up adding some warm purples and some darker pink with the watercolors initially. I also ended up using a fan blender brush, a small one, to add those kind of random dots on her tail that you'll see later on, which were a really fun detail and kind of mimicked, again, thinking back to the weedy seahorse, what they look like. But later on, I still was not happy with the tail, so with colored pencils, I ended up adding a little bit of yellow and then more purple and a touch of a really dark red to sort of just get more of the shape to her. But the yellow, I think, was a fun choice that I ended up putting on there. But the first layer of actually the background, the water, was a very basic blue. But I put that down with the intention, thinking that, okay, I'm going to add more to that. Because usually I've gotten this habit with when I paint water, especially for very stylized illustrations like this, the very top layer of the water is always sort of this yellowy green color, sort of thinking about sunlight in a way. I don't know why. I don't know how I started doing it, but I love the way it looks. It just is fun. So I knew I wanted to add a little bit of that back into there. So I added the yellow green to the top, and then sort of sporadically throughout it, I put some more blue green, and then this really magical Daniel Smith color I got recently called Cascade Green. It's super neat how it works. But it's basically, it's green, but then it granulates and becomes sort of blue in parts. So it's really neat. I never tried Daniel Smith before, so I really wanted a color to try out, and now I want all the Daniel Smith colors. I also chose not to ink the background again because I wanted her to really pop forward, and I instead lined the plants with some different color, green colored pencils. I'm trying to remember which ones. I think like a grass green, like again a blue kind of peacocky green, and then again like a very like dark kind of olivey color. I of course added just a touch of my Copic markers to add a little more saturation to certain parts of her skin, since again kind of going back to my issue with sort of figuring out skin colors with the watercolors. Sometimes again doesn't always work out so well, so I usually will sort of rely back onto my hoard of earth tone watercolor or Copic markers to sort of help balance that part out. But I didn't use as much as normally I would on her because again, it was again, like the Copics are very saturated compared to what I put down for a skin color with the watercolor. And again, I wanted to keep that paleness about her, kind of like porcelain. Similarly with her hair, I only put a very, very light pink wash on it because I was thinking of actually having it white, but just like kind of like an off-white pink color. And then I, of course, lined it with, in my typical style that I like to do. And I always, as always, I finished off this piece with my Fine-Tech watercolors, which I have three sets now altogether, and I used one color from each, actually. Because who doesn't love a little sparkle in a piece? I know I do. I like it a lot. I mainly used it on the floating bubbles in the background, and then her jewelry, and then also her eyes, because I think it's fun to sort of have that weird kind of shine to the eyes to sort of surprise you and shock you. I also used some of that same iridescent color for the bubbles, and I just randomly flecked it across the piece by tapping my like paintbrush, like really like kind of smacking it to get it to sort of spray out in like random patterns. You don't notice it very much because the iridescent color is so light, unless you like are really looking at it in the sunlight. But yeah, that technique it's messy, but it's very effective. And then, as always, the very final touch that I put on my pieces is using my Sakura Jelly Roll pen to add those white highlights to just make certain things pop. I think I put it on a little bit of the hair, on her crown, the heart, her lip, I think a little bit on her nose. Not on the eyes though this time, because I wanted to keep those sort of the same sort of shininess as before. But yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this speed paint, and remember, if you would like some merch of her, she is available on my Redbubble. And if you just enjoy my artwork and you would like to support me, do feel free to head over to my Ko-fi account and buy me a cup of tea. Any donations I get through that I will do like fun little sketch requests for you as a nice thank you. So if you do donate, please do make sure to like put a comment in saying what you would like me to draw, or I'll just end up drawing some randomness. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell if you would like to see more videos. And I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, guys.